Mosquitoes are becoming resistant to insecticides faster than we can create new insecticides. I've spoken to more than 40 pest control professionals from across the nation, and again I hear the same story. Their pesticides are becoming less effective with each passing year. I'm Nate Venarske, and I founded Automatic Mosquito Ovitrap to give industry a tool to fight against these pesticide-resistant super mosquitoes. And this is not just a problem because mosquitoes are a nuisance, which they are, but we're also beginning to see more and more deadly tropical diseases being spread in the United States. I'm not talking about a travel case where someone goes to another country and comes back with a disease. I'm talking about, well, first, I should go back and say, whenever we spray mosquitoes for insecticides, we end up just killing the mosquitoes that are susceptible without harming the resistant ones. And this creates a situation where the mosquitoes that are left are resistant to the insecticides and our efforts become futile. Now, this is a problem for this moment in American history because we're starting to get local transmission where we have local mosquitoes growing up in a local pot of dirty water that go and bite somebody and give them a disease such as dengue, which, if you're not familiar with it, is called break bone fever because it can make you feel like all the bones in your body are broken. And it can also cause blood to come out of your eyes, nose, and ears. It's completely incurable, and there is no vaccine for it on the market. So mosquitoes are going from a nuisance to a life or death problem in many parts of the world, including parts of America. But it's not just limited to America. The mosquitoes that spread these diseases are projected to, in the very near future, be affecting 6 billion people, which is 70% of everybody. So this is a significant problem, and we need to find a solution for these mosquitoes that doesn't cause them to become resistant to pesticides. So how do you kill mosquitoes without getting them resistant to pesticides? How do you kill them without using pesticides? The answer is you have to hack their biology. So mosquitoes will lay their eggs on the insides of containers that have water, and they'll lay the eggs right above the water. That way, when it rains, the water level rises, and mosquitoes hatch when there's the right amount of water. But we have put a plastic mesh over the surface of the water that traps them and suffocates them. In theory, this reduces mosquito populations. But how does it do in practice? So in the 1980s, some scientists in Houston, Texas, tested a similar principle where they took glass bottles, cut them in half, and put nylon gauze in the water. And they were able to reduce mosquito populations by 80%. However, they had to put these traps out in 90% of the houses, and the traps constantly broke because they're made of glass. So these traps were not ever adopted, and they were published in an obscure journal and were forgotten about. So since that time, we've learned a lot more about how to attract mosquitoes, and I believe that I have built a trap that can attract more mosquitoes so that we don't have to have 90% community participation to work. However, I have not filed a provisional patent on that yet. I'm in the process of doing that. So we're going to be doing that in December and beginning to roll out this trap next year. So if you're a mosquito control professional and you go to a conference or you go to a trade show or a magazine looking for a trap, you're going to have options. Unfortunately, most of those options still use pesticides. So if you're trying to fight pesticide-resistant mosquitoes, these don't help very much. There is one trap on the market, the Catchmaster OviCatch, which uses glue boards instead of pesticides, and it works very well. However, despite being available since 2018, almost no one has used this trap. I've spoken to so many people, and I found one person online who uses this trap. The reason for this is because you have to replace the glue boards every 3 months. So if you're a pest control professional and you visit your clients every 6 months or on a different time scale, you can't use this trap. Whereas our trap, because it doesn't have any replaceable components, it can be maintained on 1 year, and it can be refilled on whatever schedule the pesticide applicator is visiting the houses. This means it fits with any business model. So when we're talking about the pest control market, it's a relatively large market, but mosquito control is an unfortunately small proportion of that. It's only about 1-ish billion of the $24 billion. This is because most mosquito control companies are actually generalist pest control companies, and they use mosquito control as an add-on service. But they're competing with that minority of companies that just treat mosquitoes. I had one potential user tell me that mosquito control makes up a significant proportion of the work that they do, but only 5% of their profits. So that just doesn't work for a lot of companies. And that's one reason that mosquito traps are still only around $60 million in the market, because they actually currently require more labor than other forms of mosquito control, and thus just aren't actionable. So our business model to overcome this is to work very closely with local pest control companies and 3D print mosquito traps for them to test and see which ones work best for them and which ones sell best for customers. This also has the advantage of keeping our capital expenditures low to begin with, because we aren't having to spend $100,000 for steel molds. And this allows us to build the best trap that we can with the resources that we have, that we can then scale up in the future. But we do want to scale into steel molds because 3D printing has a relatively lower profit margin, which means that until we get those injection molding going, our financials are going to look kind of flat. So I'm the oddball today. Everybody else is going to show you graphs that are up and to the right. My graph, if you look at the trend line, says pretty flat. But we already have investment from CoBuilders and from non-dilutive funding sources that I've received. And we have time to work and find a solution that works and that generates more revenue than it does costs. And once we find that level, then we'll move on to the next stage of either bootstrapping development or seeking angel investment. So far, what I've been able to get done with on my own is 2 regional NSF I-Corps programs where I've talked to 77 people ranging from homeowners to pest control professionals to C-suite executives at manufacturing and distribution companies. I've also received an EPA establishment number, which gives me the ability to start producing these traps in Mississippi. And recently, a local pest control company expressed interest in purchasing these traps despite the fact that they have not been tested yet. So testing these is our next order of business. We've got a quote to do that in December. And we're also going to be filing a provisional patent on our improvements. In spring, we're going to be testing these traps in the field with one of several partners who has expressed interest in doing this for us. And in summer, I'm going to be applying for the USDA SBIR application. It's a $130,000 non-dilutive grant. And the program manager for this grant has already informed me that this project is a good fit for that grant. And finally, our exit strategy is to be acquired by one of the distributors of mosquito traps on the market. So, pesticide-resistant super mosquitoes spreading incurable diseases are a real threat to the world. And we need a solution to this that isn't going to compound the problem. We need a pesticide-free solution, and the solution needs to work with existing business models for ease of integration, because we're going to need to scale up quickly in the near future. So keep an eye out for me, because pretty soon you'll be seeing these traps in your community protecting you from mosquitoes. Thank you very much.
What's the radius that a mosquito flies?
Well, what's the radius that a mosquito flies is the question. That's a great question. The mosquitoes that are targeted by this trap, I'll go back here. These 2 species fly about 500 feet from where they were born. And so actually most of the spread that they have, if you map it out, it's by cars. They're like laying their eggs in a crevice in a truck and traveling that way. There are other mosquitoes that will fly further distances, but those mosquitoes aren't spreading dengue and Zika and chikungunya. Good question. Yes?
Do any of your competitors that you put on the screen, do they kill other insects besides mosquitoes, or are they just mosquito devices that spray?
That's a great question. These are all very host specific to mosquitoes. The question was, do these hurt other things other than mosquitoes? The answer is no. Yes.
Would you address a little bit about the climate, for instance, really cold weather versus warm weather?
Yes, so Chip asked about the climate. So these mosquitoes do prefer warmer air weather to a certain degree, but in the near future, I keep hitting that instead of the laser pointer, they're going to be active for about a month or two out of the year as far north as like Canada. So they are moving north. They do have reduced periods of activity up there, but they are moving north. I guess I can expand on that a little bit. There's a double whammy in mosquitoes, where the mosquitoes that spread these tropical diseases are really bad in rainy years, and the mosquitoes that spread West Nile virus are really bad in drought years. And so no matter what the climate does, we're going to have more diseases from mosquitoes. An unfortunate situation. Yes.
I may have missed something, but I don't quite understand what's actually attracting the mosquito. It's about getting out intellectual property. Can you explain that?
Yes, the question is what's actually attracting the mosquito. The answer is the water, and the fact that the container is a dark container and it holds amount of water between a few liters to a few gallons. That's the range of water that really is attracting these mosquitoes. And we've learned more about this since the 1980s. Basically, mosquitoes can lay their eggs in something the size of a bottle cap, but they prefer to lay their eggs in something that's more in that mid-sized range, where it's not big enough for fish or other aquatic predators, but it's not so small that the wind can knock it over. Great question. There's a question back there.
Yeah. What inspired you to pick this as a problem to solve?
That is a great question. What inspired me to pick this as a problem to solve? So I'm a licensed horticulturist, and I've been doing plant nursery stuff for a while, helping people to get out in the environment and enjoy the bees and butterflies. But that also, if you're outside in nature, you're exposing yourself to mosquitoes. And so I wanted to create something that would allow people to enjoy the outside without fear of mosquitoes. And then I got interested in medical entomology from that perspective and visited Oxford, England, did some study there in medical entomology, and that's where I learned a lot about mosquito-virus interactions and how to attract and control mosquitoes. Yes?
Have you started thinking about your team and what your first hires, new team members would be?
Yes, absolutely. So the question is, have I started thinking about my team and first hires? Yes. So I definitely want to hire someone who has experience in the pest application, because as a licensed applicator, you can do more with these. And specifically, there are some requirements. If you're distributing these on a large level, then you do need to have someone with those credentials in your office or in your company. There's some regulatory issues there. So that's number one. And then also I am interested in growing the team with people who've got more experience on the financial and management side. I'm more of a technology and idea person. So I am looking for a co-founder. Any other questions?
What's going to be the cost of your device, and what's your percent of the markup?
It's a great question. What is the cost of the device and what is the percent markup? So the cost to the pest control professionals would be, right now it's looking like $35 to $45, and the markup, the cost to make this is going to be in the $15 to $20 range. It depends on a few variables, because we're going to be doing A/B testing of these traps before we come upon our final design.
So you're targeting a professional rather than a residential customer.
Yes.
You're not going to sell to the general public.
So the question is, am I targeting professionals or residential? Right now I'm targeting professionals. I have considered the residential market. The reason why I'm going with professionals is, one, because you can make more sales at a given time, at least in theory, and also because these traps are more effective the more people on the block are in on it. And pest control professionals already have an incentive to get everyone in the block in on the program. Great questions. You have a question? Okay. Well, thank you all very much. I really appreciate it.